best case scenario for the teams that finished in last place in the 4 AFC divisions. We're going to flip it over to the NFC today, Chris. Best case scenario for the 4 teams that finished in last place in the NFC East, NFC North, NFC South, and NFC West, respectively. Let's start with the NFC East. Your New York Giants.
Big Blue.
These are not your daddy's New York Giants. That's for damn sure. 5-11 last year. What's the best case scenario for that team this year?
I think, first off, I'm going to say this. I think the Giants are going to surprise some people this year. I really do. I think they're going to be a pain in the butt for a lot of people in football. And you've heard me say this, Mike. The biggest thing with them that I first look at, always with any team, is offense and defensive line. That's where games can really become even or truly unbalanced when one team is overpowered in a certain area. The Giants' O-line, a lot better. And Shermer is an ex-O-line guy himself. I mean, so I look at that. Their D-line has tremendous size. Now, a lot is going to be about Eli and who's going to make enough passing plays in the pass game. I still think there's enough weapons there to be had, too. They're a little unproven in the secondary. That scares me. So what I guess I'm getting down to is best case scenario. Okay? I don't even think the best case scenario is playoff football. I'm going to say it's like best case scenario is just missing out and going like 9-7 or 8-8. I think that's the best case scenario. And really, I don't think the floor is that bad either. I think the floor for the Giants is like, okay, maybe 6-10, which I know sounds bad, but 6-10 and competitive in some games where they lost, down the stretch and lost some close ones.
And I actually think not making it to the playoffs is best case scenario in more ways than one, because if Eli Manning starts all year and they make the playoffs, what the hell do you do next year?
Yeah.
What do you do? His contract's expiring. Do you do a 1-year Band-Aid with Eli Manning? Do you make him the starter next year? Do you deal with this Eli Manning, Daniel Jones nonsense for another year? Now, and because we've heard them talk about the KC model, which would be 1 year of Eli Manning and then Daniel Jones. We've heard them mention the Green Bay model, which was 3 years of Brett Favre before it became Aaron Rodgers. I think
now Brett Favre was playing at a very high level,
right?
Too, so
and I agree, But they've mentioned that. They mentioned the possibility of him sitting on the bench for multiple years.
Right.
If they make the playoffs with Eli Manning as the starter, Daniel Jones is going to sit on the bench into 2020, and if he's the 6th overall pick in the draft, at some point you got to go with him. So I agree with you. The best case scenario in more ways than one would be 7-9, 8-8, on the fringes of playoff contention, maybe not eliminated until Christmas, something like that, where they can feel proud of what they've done, but they can take the baton out of Eli Manning's hand, give it to Daniel Jones, say, you're our guy next year. And look, so much of what they do this year depends upon how much they embrace Saquon Barkley. I think it took them a while last year to really appreciate that he's your offense, not Eli Manning.
Right.
Run the ball with Saquon Barkley, throw the ball to Saquon Barkley, make him the focal point of everything you do, and then let your passing game to the outside receivers develop around all of the attention that's going to be clogged up the middle to try to stop Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, he is. I mean, Saquon Barkley is the best running back in football. That's all there is to it. He is phenomenal. I've never seen a guy make, more 4- and 5-yard runs when I go, there is nothing there to be had. Or he gets 10 yards. I mean, how many times did we see games last year like Troy Aikman on that Thursday night game against the Eagles? He's like, that might have been the greatest 6-yard run I've ever seen in my life. That might be the greatest 9-yard run I've ever seen in my life. That's what kind of player he is. He is generational. He is, it's like he's the best running back I've seen since Adrian Peterson come out. I'm pumped to watch him play this year.
Well, and they also need to showcase him to the extent that Sam Darnold continues to develop into a franchise quarterback, because that's the guy they left on the board, and they took Saquon Barkley. And again, if you take a running back 2nd overall, you better be ready to use him till the wheels come off, because otherwise there's somebody else you should have taken with that 2nd overall pick. So he is a generational talent. We hear that term a lot, but he is.
He is. This is true. This is real.
The question is, will he play long enough? Will he want to play long enough? Will he be healthy long enough? This guy's got Hall of Fame written all over him after only 1 year.
Right.
But I think he can help them get to 500, in the range of 500. And if they are any better than that, then they're stuck with Eli Manning for another year, and I think they don't want that. All right, let's move on to the AFC. Well, I keep saying AFC. NFC West. We're talking about the NFC. The NFC West. And the Cardinals actually used to be in the NFC East when I was
when I was growing up.
That drove me crazy.
Yeah, me too.
And they were St. Louis Cardinals, and it drove me crazy. And then for a while, once they moved to Phoenix, they were still in the NFC East as the Arizona Cardinals.
Right.
They are now and have been for the last 17 years in the NFC West. The Arizona Cardinals were 3-13 last year. What's the best case scenario for them this year?
They're on the right track. They're going going in the right direction in a lot of ways. I mean, they're rebuilding their football team, but I really think best case, truly best case is like 6-10. I just got too many questions across the board. One, I don't know if there's enough weapons on the offense right now in the pass game, and an offense that we know is going to be the air raid Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff Kingsbury's unproven to me. The O-line, even though better, it looks like it's going to be better than last year, still not great. Defense, same thing, Mike. Yes, there's Chandler Jones there. I'm excited for him, but there's just a lot of unproven commodities. Patrick Peterson's not going to be there in the back end for the first, 8 games? Six. So, there's just a lot of things there that I don't know. And if you're watching on TV, you see. They had a deep draft. They got a lot of young talent. They're trying to infuse these guys into the roster a little bit. So I don't see, anything flirting with the playoffs. I just see them being a pain in the butt and Kyler Murray being a pain in the butt, but ultimately 6-10 is about as good as I'm going to give them.
Yeah, I think you're right. Because of the Rams, because of the Seahawks, because of the 49ers, if the 49ers are better, and a lot of people think they will be, it's a zero-sum game. For every winner, there's a loser. And if there are teams in the NFC West that are playing at a high level, that's going to run downhill onto the Arizona Cardinals.
Plus, they play the NFC South and the AFC North, and those are two divisions that I wouldn't want any piece of right now in my outer division games.
And I think, look, I don't think you want to come out of the gates and be 8-8, 9-7. You want it to build a little more slowly for Cliff Kingsbury, and it's going to.
Yeah,
I think anything better than last year's 3-13 is cause for celebration in Arizona, and I could see it possibly end up. I look at Kyler Murray and I say, this guy's been so successful everywhere he's been. He won't allow them to lose 14 games, 13 games, 15 games, something like that. But that's really the wild card with Kyler Murray. Football has come so easy to him throughout his high school and college career. How is he going to deal with his first 3-game losing streak? How is he going to deal with a 4-interception game if that ever happens?
Yeah.
And it's going to be part of the excitement of the season, and I think this is a team that would benefit dramatically from getting off to a great start. We see teams that win games early, and that confidence leads to more confidence, and by Halloween, you're feeling like a much different team than you were heading into the season.
Yep.
All right, let's slide up to the NFC South. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers were 5-11 last year. I feel like this division is more wide open than it's been. I think there's a lot of confusion as to who the best team is. Bruce Arians was brought in to try to get the most out of Jameis Winston, the first overall pick in the 2015 draft. He's on his last chance by all appearances. Arians is back after his second career retirement. They have Todd Bowles to run the defense, which is a positive. Byron Leftwich running the offense. What is the best case scenario for these new look Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
This is one of the, I think, what do I want to say? Just one of those teams that's really kind of I don't want to say an outlier, but just an unknown in the NFC South, where I can see it going a whole lot of different ways here. There's a lot of positives to look at. Of course, I'm excited about Bruce Arians and the offense and some of the talent they have, at wide receiver and tight end. And Jameis Winston, when he is good, it's been really good. The problem is when it's been bad, it's been really bad. And I'm hoping Bruce Arians can get that out of them. Now, I certainly think they're going to be better than 5-11. I think Todd Bowles being down there on defense is going to change that football team too. They are big up front. I will say that. And you got Sue is there. Yeah, no more JPP. That stinks that they don't have that guy coming off the edge, but it's still a very big defensive front. You got the Devin White, who was a top 10 pick at middle linebacker. They got some young studs as secondary, a little unproven. So I'm going to say best case is like 10-6 and they sneak in the playoffs. I don't think that's what will happen, but I think that's the best case, right, where they catch magic and they actually sneak into a wild card game. But I ultimately think I look at them being like a 7-9, 8-8 type of team.
I don't think there's a middle ground for them. I think it's either going to go incredibly well or it's going to fall apart. Yeah. So the best case scenario is a playoff berth. Yeah. I think the best case scenario for the Buccaneers is winning the division and Bruce Arians being named Coach of the Year for the third time this decade. That's the best case scenario.
Man, that would be amazing.
What they would do in the playoffs, who knows? But I think they could win that division. That's their best case. And their worst case is 3-13.
Right.
But it all depends upon whether it works right out of the gates. And we'll know whether or not this is working. We'll know whether or not Bruce Arians has the patience for it. We'll know whether or not Jameis Winston is responding to the teaching from Bruce Arians early in the regular season. But I think it could go either way, and it could go very well for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All right, NFC North, last division to get to in the NFC. Lions, 6-10, best case scenario.
Well, Again, this is an unknown team here. I mean, Darrell Bevell taking over at OC, okay? Patricia's second year kind of installing his defense in that system. They have a lot of big people. A lot like, New England, the Detroit Lions are not going to lose battles up front. That's the one thing I look at. Now, I do look at their playmakers in the pass game and go, is there enough there? Man, TJ Hawkinson's looked good in the preseason, especially last week. So that gives me an encouragement there. I mean, I guess what I would say, man, this is a team that I'm picking to be last in the NFC North, and I look at them and go, ooh, they really scare me. I don't know what to feel here with them. I'm going to say best case scenario, though, is they make some magic happen, and I think they could squeak into the wild card like that. I'm not going to pick that to happen, but I wouldn't be shocked if Detroit caught fire and got a run game. Kerryon Johnson looked phenomenal as a rookie last year, and Matt Stafford adjusted to the style of play, and then their defense takes to Matt Patricia, who I think they've built the right pieces to fit that scheme. I'll say that's best case scenario. I think realistically, I think they're like a little like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where I would go 7-9, 8-8 when all said and done.
See, and at one point we talked about how evenly matched the NFC North is this year, and how many there's going to be 12 games in that division that are going to be great games. And we came to the conclusion a couple of weeks ago that any of those 4 teams can win the division. Yep. Any of those 4 teams can end up in 4th place. So I think the Lions, they could win the NFC North. That's their best case scenario, that they do take to Matt Patricia, that the culture change under Patricia and GM Bob Quinn happens more quickly.
Right.
Having a guy like Mike Daniels there who said publicly, when the Packers cut him, he made a beeline for the Lions because he wants to play for Matt Patricia. It's just getting that culture, getting them to buy in, getting them to break from 60 years of a negative culture, a non-winning culture, and
right.
you develop a lot of bad habits, a lot of bad attitudes, and they're in the process of trying to turn.
Look at that D-line, though. That's a real deal right there when you look at that group.
Keep those guys healthy and,
Yeah.
run the ball, stop the run, and then everything else flows from that. And you got a guy who's shown that he can throw the football. Matthew Stafford, he's been in bubble wrap most of the preseason, but if you can run the ball and stop the run and you sprinkle in Matthew Stafford, it could get very interesting in Detroit this year. All right, when we return.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.